I've been married to her for 8 years, together for 11. On paper, we looked solid: shared apartment, routines, inside jokes, future plans we talked about like they were already booked. But about 3 months ago, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic at first, just small, itchy details that wouldn't leave me alone. She started guarding her phone like it was a loaded weapon. Screen down. Password changed. Bathroom breaks that lasted forever. When I asked simple questions like, "Who are you texting?" she snapped back with attitude, rolled her eyes, told me I was being controlling. That was new. She'd always been blunt, but now she was sharp, almost hostile, like I was an inconvenience in my own marriage. Our conversations turned transactional. Groceries. Bills. Silence. She stopped touching me, no casual hugs, no hand on my arm. Meanwhile, she suddenly cared a lot about her appearance. New clothes. New perfume. Gym at weird hours. When I mentioned it, she laughed in my face and said, "God, not everything is about you." I told myself I was paranoid. Work stress, midlife stuff, whatever excuse helped me sleep. I wanted to believe the woman I married wasn't slowly pulling away while standing right in front of me. Looking back now, that denial was the calm before everything exploded. The moment that really stuck with me happened on a Tuesday night. Nothing special about the day. I was half asleep on the couch when her phone lit up on the coffee table. She was in the shower. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear that, but the name on the screen wasn't saved. Just a first name and a stupid emoji. The message preview said, "I still smell you on me." My chest tightened like someone had grabbed it with both hands. I didn't open the phone. I didn't need to. I just stared at the screen until it went dark, my brain scrambling for explanations that didn't involve the obvious. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe a coworker crossed a line. Maybe I was about to ruin my own marriage by assuming the worst. When she came out of the bathroom, towel on her head, I casually asked, "Hey, who's Alex?" Her face changed instantly. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Annoyance. She sighed hard and said, "Seriously? You're checking my phone now?" I told her it just popped up. She snapped back that Alex was a coworker, that I was being weird, that I needed to trust her. Then she grabbed her phone, typed furiously, and turned it off. No reassurance. No warmth. Just irritation, like I'd interrupted something important. That night, she slept with her back to me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying that message over and over. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't yet understand how bad it really was. After that night, I started noticing how effortlessly she lied. Not big, dramatic lies, small ones that stacked on top of each other until they formed something ugly. She said she was working late, but her location showed her across town. She said she was exhausted, yet stayed out until midnight with friends whose names kept changing. I tried talking to her. Calmly. I told her I felt disconnected, that I was worried about us. She laughed, actually laughed, and told me I was being dramatic. Said every couple goes through boring phases and that I needed to chill before I ruin everything. The irony still makes me sick. One evening, she came home buzzing with energy, phone glued to her hand, smiling at messages she wouldn't share with me anymore. I asked her if there was someone else. She didn't even hesitate. She scoffed and said, "You really think anyone would put up with you like that?" Then she walked past me and locked herself in the bedroom. That comment cut deeper than anything else so far. It wasn't just denial, it was cruelty. Like she needed to push me down so she wouldn't feel guilty standing on me. I started doubting my own reality. Maybe I was insecure. Maybe I deserved the distance. But every time she smirked at her screen or snapped at me for asking basic questions, that knot in my stomach tightened. I didn't know it yet, but I was already standing at the edge of the truth, and she was daring me to jump. The truth didn't come out because I was brave or clever. It came out because she got sloppy. One Friday, she asked me to pick her up from a team dinner. I was already irritated but agreed. I pulled up outside the restaurant she named and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I called her. Straight to voicemail. That same tight feeling crept back into my chest. On a hunch, I checked a nearby bar down the street. And there she was, through the window, laughing in a way I hadn't seen in months. Her hand was on a man's thigh. Not a coworker. Not innocent. Intimate. Comfortable. Familiar. I didn't storm in. I stood there frozen, watching my marriage collapse in real time. Then, like the universe wanted to make it hurt more, she leaned in and kissed him. No hesitation. No guilt. Just confidence. My phone buzzed. A text from her, dinner's running late. Just wait. Something inside me snapped. I walked into the bar. She saw me immediately. Her face went pale, then angry, like I was the problem for showing up. She jumped up, hissing my name like a warning. This isn't what it looks like, she said, too fast. The guy looked confused. I looked calm, which scared even me. I told her to come home. She refused. Said I was embarrassing her. Said we'd talk later. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just cheating. She had already decided I didn't matter. She didn't come home that night. I sat in the apartment until dawn, alternating between rage and this hollow numbness I'd never felt before. When she finally walked in the next morning, she didn't look guilty. She looked irritated, like I'd inconvenienced her by existing. I asked her, calmly at first, to tell me the truth. All of it. She dropped her keys, crossed her arms, and said, "You're blowing this way out of proportion." Then she tried to rewrite reality in real time, said the kiss meant nothing, said I'd been distant for months, said if I'd been a better husband she wouldn't have needed attention elsewhere. When I brought up the lies, the texts, the secrecy, she denied everything. Flat out. Claimed I imagined things. Claimed I was paranoid. At one point she even accused me of cheating, like throwing mud would somehow make hers disappear. I raised my voice. I couldn't help it. That's when she smirked and told me I was scary when I got emotional. That hurt almost as much as the betrayal. She wasn't just cheating, she was trying to make me the villain so she could stay the hero in her own story. The conversation ended with her grabbing a bag and saying she needed space to think. The door slammed. Silence followed. I stood there in the wreckage of my life, realizing the woman I loved wasn't fighting for us at all. She was fighting to protect her lies. The anger didn't come right away. At first, I just felt empty, like someone had scraped me out and left the shell behind. But a few days after she left, it hit me all at once, hard and loud. I started replaying everything, the insults, the eye rolls, the way she made me feel small while sneaking around behind my back. Every lie I'd swallowed to keep the peace suddenly tasted toxic. I wasn't just sad anymore. I was furious. She texted like nothing serious had happened. Casual updates. Half apologies wrapped in excuses. I'm confused. This is complicated. You're not innocent in this. Every message felt like another slap. Not once did she say, "I'm sorry I hurt you." I confronted her again over the phone. This time I didn't beg or try to understand. I told her what she did was betrayal, plain and simple. She laughed and said, "Wow, you're being dramatic again." Then she told me the affair had been going on for a while, but that it wasn't serious. That word, "a while," set me off. Weeks? Months? How many nights had she come home to me after being with him? She refused to answer, said details didn't matter, said I needed to stop obsessing. When the call ended, I punched the wall. Not my proudest moment, but it was the first time I actually felt something real. Anger meant I wasn't broken. It meant I knew I didn't deserve this, even if she kept acting like I did. A week later, she came back to the apartment unannounced. No warning. Just her key in the lock like she still belonged there. My stomach dropped the second I heard it. She acted casual, almost cheerful. Started making coffee like we were a normal couple having a rough patch. That's when I asked the questions I'd been avoiding. Not because I wanted to hurt myself, but because I needed the truth to stop her from rewriting it. I asked how long it had been going on. She rolled her eyes and said, "Why do you need to know everything?" Then, after some pushing, she said 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lying to my face, sleeping next to me, letting me plan a future she was already sabotaging. I asked if she loved him. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then said no, but the pause said more than her answer ever could. She quickly followed it up by blaming me again. Said he made her feel seen. Said our marriage had been dead anyway. Said I should have noticed she was unhappy. That's when it clicked. No amount of talking was going to make her take responsibility. She needed me to be the reason she cheated, because admitting the truth would mean admitting she was capable of something cruel. Hearing the details hurt like hell, but it also burned away the last of my hope. The woman standing in front of me wasn't confused. She was done, and she wanted me to quietly accept it so she wouldn't have to feel like the bad guy. After she left that day, I collapsed onto the couch and just stared at the ceiling for hours. It wasn't anger this time. It was the deep, gnawing sadness that comes when the life you thought you had is suddenly gone. I felt like I'd been living in a dream that shattered while I was still inside it. I replayed everything, the laughter, the plans, the quiet nights that felt safe, and realized half of it had been staged. She had been living 2 lives at once, and I was the fool in the story. I stopped talking to her. Every call, every message she sent, felt like a reminder that I'd been replaced in small, intimate ways for months. Friends told me to get out, to block her, to stop torturing myself. I tried, but the grief was like quicksand. I couldn't pull myself out fast enough. The worst part was the betrayal itself. Not just the cheating, but the way she treated me afterward. She had been cruelly efficient in breaking my trust. Every lie, every excuse, every deflection, it all built up until I couldn't recognize the woman I loved. And for a while, I couldn't recognize myself either. It wasn't just sadness, it was the fear that maybe I hadn't been enough, that maybe the fault really was mine in some way. I had to fight that voice every day. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together, laughing, touching, living a life I wasn't part of. My mind became a non-stop loop of questions. How long? How often? Did she think of me at all? I checked her messages once, even though I swore I wouldn't. The texts were casual, flirty, sometimes intimate. Every word felt like salt in a wound. And the worst part? She wasn't hiding anymore. She seemed almost proud, like I was supposed to admire how cleverly she had deceived me. Work suffered. Friends noticed I was off. I tried to throw myself into routines, to distract myself with small victories like cleaning the apartment or going for runs, but nothing worked. The grief kept following me, settling in my chest like a stone I couldn't lift. I realized I wasn't just sad or angry, I was obsessed with understanding her betrayal, as if solving the puzzle would somehow make it less painful. But the harder I tried to understand, the more I realized some people just don't care. And she didn't. That was a hard truth. One that made me feel powerless, but also, slowly, it started to make me see the possibility of moving forward. About a month after everything blew up, I hit my breaking point. I couldn't stand the uncertainty, the lingering texts, the I need space messages that were really just her keeping me on a leash. I realized that staying in limbo was destroying me faster than anger or sadness ever could. I confronted her one last time. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just laid it all out, the affair, the lies, the emotional abuse. I told her I wasn't a part of this story anymore. She laughed, of course she laughed, and said I was dramatic again. I realized then that she would never feel remorse in a way that mattered. The breaking point wasn't the anger or the tears. It was the clarity. I saw her for who she was and realized that trying to fix this marriage was like trying to hold water in my hands. The person I loved had been gone for months, replaced by someone who treated me like an obstacle. That night, I packed a bag, stayed with a friend, and finally let myself breathe without her presence suffocating me. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of relief amidst the heartbreak. It wasn't happiness, but it was freedom. After leaving the apartment, I started to rebuild small pieces of myself. I stopped checking her social media, stopped responding to her messages, and even blocked the number she was using to string me along. It felt selfish at first, but I realized I couldn't heal while she still had access to my emotions. I threw myself into routines, work, exercise, cooking meals for myself. I started journaling, trying to untangle the mess in my head. Every day, I reminded myself that the betrayal wasn't my fault. That simple mantra felt almost revolutionary. This isn't my shame. I didn't deserve this. Friends helped too. They didn't sugarcoat it, they didn't try to make excuses for her. They just reminded me that I deserved respect, honesty, and loyalty, things she had proven she couldn't give. Slowly, I began to feel a spark of confidence I hadn't realized I'd lost. I was learning that I didn't need her validation to feel whole. It wasn't instant. Some days I would relapse into sadness or anger. But for the first time, I felt like I was steering my own life instead of being tossed around by her decisions. Once I started reclaiming my emotional footing, I had to face the practical side of ending the marriage. We had shared finances, bills, and a lease. Sorting through that mess felt almost as painful as the emotional betrayal. I consulted a lawyer, started separating accounts, and made lists of everything that needed to be divided. Each step was a reminder that the life I thought we had built together was over. She acted indifferent, brushing off the changes, like she expected me to disappear quietly without taking anything with me. Even mundane things, like choosing what furniture to keep, felt loaded with memories. Every decision was a small victory and a small grief at the same time. It was exhausting, but necessary. I realized that reclaiming my life wasn't just emotional, it was logistical. Through it all, I noticed something strange. As I made tangible steps forward, the emotional weight lightened. Taking control in the real world gave me power I hadn't felt in months. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving the betrayal, I was actively choosing my next chapter. By the time we finalized the legal separation, something shifted inside me. The raw, burning anger had softened. The constant replaying of her lies and betrayal no longer dominated my thoughts. I still felt sadness, of course, and a pang of loss now and then, but it didn't control me. I realized that acceptance didn't mean forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever. It meant acknowledging the reality: she had chosen a life without me, and I had to choose one that included me. I stopped hoping she would regret her actions. I stopped imagining conversations that would never happen. I focused on myself, my routines, my friends, and my dreams that hadn't been hers to dictate. For the first time in months, I felt like I could plan for the future without her shadow looming over every decision. Acceptance wasn't a clean cut, it was jagged, uneven, sometimes painful. But it was mine. I was starting to own my life again, and that small sense of control was liberating. It took time, and it still does, but acceptance planted the seed of resilience I didn't know I had. Looking back, I've learned things I never wanted to, but needed to. First, trust is fragile, and once broken, it can't just be patched up with words. Second, denial only prolongs pain. I spent months convincing myself everything was fine, and that delay made the heartbreak worse. I also learned that people can change, but not always in the way we hope. She didn't change, didn't regret, and didn't see me as a person she had hurt. That realization hurt, but it also freed me. I stopped waiting for her to be the partner I deserved. Most importantly, I learned to value myself. My happiness isn't dependent on someone else's honesty or affection. I can grieve, rage, and cry, but then I get up, because I'm the one who matters in the end. It's hard to admit, but this betrayal, as cruel as it was, forced me to grow in ways I wouldn't have otherwise. I found resilience, clarity, and self-respect amidst the wreckage of a marriage that had died long before she left. I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone, but I also wouldn't erase the lessons it taught me. Now, months later, I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. I've created routines that center around my well being, reconnected with friends I'd drifted from, and even allowed myself to explore new interests and experiences I'd put on hold. I don't wake up every day thinking about her or the betrayal. Instead, I focus on what I can control: my choices, my actions, and my future. I've accepted that some wounds never fully disappear, but they don't have to define me. I've learned to set boundaries, trust cautiously, and value honesty above all else. And while I still feel the sting of what was lost, I also feel the strength I've gained in reclaiming my life. If I could give advice to anyone in a similar situation, it would be this: face the truth, no matter how painful. Protect yourself, emotionally and practically. Don't let someone else's betrayal erase your worth. And remember, letting go isn't weakness. It's the first step toward living for yourself again. I'm finally moving forward, not because she left, but because I chose to rise from the wreckage she created. And that choice is mine, and mine alone.